The first African slaves officially arrived in the United States in 1619. 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which essentially granted freedom for slaves. However, only in 1865, after the Civil War, Union soldiers traveled to Texas to read aloud these general orders, which freed the slaves. 1619 to 1865. That is 246 years of slavery. But the Civil Rights Act was only signed in 1964, so that equates to 345 years of legal inequality within the US, disregarding the events prior to 1619. America has constantly battled with rights or lack of rights. Fast forward to the modern world, and racism has evolved, with stereotypes, appropriation of culture, with the contrast of shaming of culture, and undignified racial shootings, as the black population is 2.5 times more likely to be shot by the police. Many can agree this is due to the white superiority complex and has sparked the Black Lives Matter movement in 2013. Kendrick Lamar, Kanye West, Drake, Jay-Z all have stood up for their race by using their platform, as rap originated from the African culture and is used by many white people with the scrutiny of appropriation. However, the rapper Macklemore utilized it as a tool for equality. His songs White Privilege and White Privilege 2 directly discuss this issue, with white privilege dealing with the racial concerns specifically more in the music industry, and White Privilege 2 having an open conversation about his ethnicity's role in discrimination. Macklemore and Ryan Lewis use comparisons of race, direct language, personal appeals, rhetorical devices, and medium of speech in order to question their own ethnicity in relation to the racial divide still prevalent in the United States. Macklemore makes it clear on who his target audience is by admitting the likelihood of who will listen to his music.
Now who's going to shows? The kids in the block starving, or the white people with dough that can relate to my content?
In this lyric, he mentions how white supremacy drives him to his shows as they have more access, and highlights how his own ethnicity is more likely to listen to him as a form of relatability compared to the other rappers. Throughout these two songs, Macklemore uses personal pronouns as a form of emotional appeal. His honest perspective evokes a sense of responsibility in the audience, as most of his fan base is a collection of white people.
It's Eminem, and if he's taking away black artists' profits, I look just like him. Claim the culture that wasn't mine, the way of the American.
In the first lyric, he prosecutes himself, but then links it to the white populace by counting these actions to the way of the American. A few lines later, he follows this up with a rhetorical question.
Where's my place in the music that's been taken by my race? Cultural appropriated by the white face.
It resonates with the targeted audience, as he does not argue whether they have appropriated it or not. Instead, he illustrates his confusion around his position in the middle of this appropriated art form. The past participle is important, as it removes any arguments originating from his race on whether they have or not.
Be a white MC, I give everything I have when I write a rhyme, but that doesn't change the fact that this culture's not mine.
Here he presents his appreciation for the culture and the effort he puts in while acknowledging that it isn't his, which causes listeners to reflect on their perceptions of Macklemore, as he is considered a rapper, but the genre of music does not define your culture. With the reinstatement of cultures, he does not restrict or divide these races through music or other cultural values, as he is not trying to make African Americans seem like the superior race, or that would cause further inequalities.
But it's not about black and white, right? I mean, good music is good music regardless of what you look like. But when you don't give them props, isn't that selfish? That's like saying rock was actually started by Elvis.
Through this musical argument, he establishes how race has little to do with music as a continuation of his role within the rap industry. However, he targets the glorification of rap music, as the removed origins has led to the appropriation, which is evident in rock music. Many believe Elvis was the foundation of rock, but he only popularized it, even though it was invented by black artists. Later he mentions,
and this is so true, and we didn't even have to fight the system. We just went and picked up the microphone too, and we got good at it. So we should be rapping, but only supporting them is like burning Jimmy and buying Clapton. Now Clapton's incredible, but no Jimmy, no foundation.
Again, he puts both races on the same playing field, presenting the utopic equality humans strive for, but he admires the history of blues rock's origins, which many consider to be Jimi Hendrix, as Eric Clapton himself claims his style is learnt from Jimi Hendrix. This relates to the second line mentioned, which implies Eminem is taking away black profits, which isn't necessarily bad, as he's just making money off the medium. However, to only fund the white generations of hip-hop or rock ignores the fundamentals, similarly to the Elvis situation. He dehumanizes white power in the attempt to reinstate the deserved rights of minorities, giving them the gratification they deserve.
And it shouldn't be hard, I said I'm gonna be me. So please be who you are, but we still own 40 acres, now we stolen their 16 bars.
The chorus of white privilege is almost like a plea to his audience. He wants them to be themselves and appreciate others while using the historical reference of General Sherman's promise of 14 acres. His promise was to give them 40 acres once they were free, but they never received this land. It discredits any delusional dominance that some of his listeners may have by disclosing all that his race has done. 16 bars refer to the common length of a verse, which his ethnicity has appropriated. We is crucial in this chorus, as he does not remove himself from the audience, but accepts it as a racist responsibility to account for what they have done in history and as a whole. In other enlightening lyrics in the song, Macklemore completes his comparisons between races and musical content.
Nope, hip-hop started off on a block that I've never been to counteract a struggle that I've never even been through. I'm not keeping it short. I don't rap about guns, so they label me cautious. But I don't rap about guns because I wasn't forced into the project.
As a rapper, he is constantly reasoning his lyrics and music with personal struggles. As most outlets, rap is meant to give an artist a voice. Here he points out how it is unreasonable to label him conscious or sensible due to his content when he isn't rapping about violent issues simply because he hasn't been through them. This touches on why he is considered different from other white rappers, and what the difference between appropriation and appreciation is, as he uses the medium for his voice, while other rappers like Vanilla Ice have appropriated the content and the medium of rap for fame and money. White Privilege 2 focuses on his racist responsibility in the discussion of this topic.
I sang, I want to take a stance because we are not free, and then I thought about it, we are not we. Am I on the outside looking in, or am I on the inside looking out? We're more concerned with being called racist than we actually are with racism. I've heard that silence is an action, and God knows that I've been passive.
He has an open dialogue with his audience about his hesitance and uncertainty surrounding the subject in certain situations, which employs personal appeals, forming a relatable environment for his white-dominated fan base. More personal pronouns are used in order to build a connection with the audience. With direct language, he reveals how the white race's behavior is more self-centered than actually helping minorities. Not only does he prosecute the audience, but he goes on to disclose about his own passive behavior, which contributes to the problem. In a Rolling Stones interview, Macklemore revealed that this line and song was sparked by, as he describes, an OG rapper telling him, "You have a platform, but silence is an action, and right now you're being silent. It's very important to engage with your audience."
We want to dress like, walk like, talk like, dance like, yet we just stand by. We take all we want from black culture, but will we show up for black lives?
The combination of personal pronouns and a rhetorical question evokes a sense of guilt in the white audience. They cannot deny stolen aspects of the African American culture with evidence all over the media. However, to follow up the repetition of "we" with a rhetorical question makes the audience query their entire role within these disputes and assess what they have done or have not done for this cause. Towards the end of this open dialogue, he presents this man talking to his audience with a counter-argument, essentially shutting down the All Lives Matter movement, which has been associated with white social groups to rebuttal the Black Lives Matter movement. All Lives Matter has the premise that black lives shouldn't be focused on. It is seen selfish as there are other races.
Black Lives Matter, to use an analogy, is like if there was a subdivision and a house was on fire, the fire department wouldn't show up and start putting water on all the houses because all houses matter. They would show up and they would turn their water on the house that was burning because that's the house that needs the help the most.
Macklemore uses emotional appeals and direct language to create a relatable environment for his white-dominated audience, which allows him to influence them in different ways depending on the subject at hand. In this case, he uses his ability to engage with straightforward lyrics through the medium of rap to question the right of his ethnicity. Comparisons of race and music illustrate the immoral behaviors the white race has executed over the years and in the present. The guilt and burden his listeners feel upon hearing this is heightened by rhetorical questions which cause them to reevaluate their actions towards the African American race and this cause. His lyrics manage to demolish the superiority of his own ethnicity as it reveals the unjustified oppression of minorities.